Yo, what's going on, guys? This is a video for a few people that have been asking some questions and wondering how I did certain things on my airboat and just some certain details and things that I've done. So I'm just making this video to cover a few of those things and try to help some people out. You know, maybe they might learn a few things from what I did and vice versa, you know what I mean? So anyway, here we go, man. It's the hull is 3 foot long, 2 foot wide. It's 4 inches deep at the widest point from top to bottom. It's 4 inches here, 4 inches here in the back. 46cc chainsaw engine, custom converted, custom prop hub. Flywheel's been milled down, all the fins have been trimmed off and it's been lightened, rebalanced somewhat. Custom pit style or custom canister style muffler with dual stingers. 18-inch APC prop. It's the Black Widow, if you haven't noticed. And a lot of people have been asking how I get my engine and my cage mounted to the styrofoam. So what I do is I get my engine mount and all that stuff made up for the engine and kind of lay it out on the hull. If you got your electronics, that's a good thing to kind of, you know, get your electronics where they're going to go in your fuel tank, just to get your, you know, your weight kind of what it's going to be when it's finished. Get your cage made up, and then you kind of try to place your engine. You know, it's usually about 1/3 from the back, because that's about where you want your main mass of your weight, but you want your balance point to be 1/3 of the hull. So if you lay like a little round dowel rod on the ground and you set your hull on it with all your stuff on it, it should balance probably about on the 1/3 marker of your hull. But once you get all your engine mount and stuff made up how you want it, you get your mounting brackets and all that stuff made up, cage mounting brackets and all that made up with your holes and all drilled. Then what I do is I take like 1/2 inch or 3/8 plywood, and you cut it out to the size needed to cover the area you need to mount your engine mount. You cut some smaller pieces for your hull. I mean, not your hull, your cage, sorry. And once you get those cut out to the size that you need, you set them on your hull, try to get it to where you want it, and then you mark out where it's going to sit out on your hull, and it's going to be, you do it before you put all your epoxy and stuff on it. So what you do is, before you epoxy it, you cut it out and you countersink it down. So if it's 3/8 plywood, you can go 3/8 or a little more, you know, like a 1/16 inch more. That way you get a good cover of epoxy over the top. You countersink it all down, that way it's nice and flush. You do the same thing where your cage is going to mount. Countersink that down, 1/2 inch, 3/8, whatever your plywood is. Then, you know, once you get your plywood cut out to the size you need, you match it up to where your engine mount is, and then you get your holes laid out and get whatever size bolts that you're going to use, and you drill holes in your plywood. And what I do is I epoxy mine into the plywood from the bottom before I epoxy it to the hull. So it's kind of like 3 steps for me. You know, you get your plywood made up, drill your holes, epoxy the hardware in, metric bolts, standard bolts, whatever you're going to use. Then once you epoxy those in, you let that sit up and get hard. Then I epoxy mine actually into the countersunk area on the hull before I epoxy over the top. So that gets a nice little bond. And sometimes you can even take, like once you get it epoxied into the hull, you can take a drill bit and kind of drill holes through it into the styrofoam. You know, it kind of, I don't know, it creates like a little, I don't know, in construction we call them pile cast. You know, it creates like a little footer. It goes through the plywood down into the styrofoam, so it kind of pins it down. And then once you do that, you can lay your final layer of epoxy over the top whenever you do the rest of the hull, and then it creates a, you know, pretty much a flush mount. You don't really see any of your mounts except for what, you know, sticking up the bolts. So it creates kind of a finished look somewhat. I mean, this boat's really not a beauty queen by any means, but it gets the job done. You know, she runs pretty good. I GPSed it at 38.3 miles per hour one day with a tailwind, and on the average it gets up to 35 to 36 miles an hour on the water. That's when it's a little bit choppy, but not too choppy. That way, you know, they run a little faster when there's a little bit of chop on the water, because you know you don't have all the friction of the flat surface of the water. But yeah, that's what I do as far as those go. I mean, I got to redo my electronics box, because whenever I was building this boat, man, I was in such a hurry to get it done. I just threw some stuff together to get my electronics box done, and it kind of leaks a little bit. And, you know, my servos and stuff got wet a few times, and my my little receiver got wet. The receiver still works, but it you know, it's got wet a couple times. Surprised it still works. And you know, that's about all I got going on right now with this. Got to fix the rudders. It's got a little split in it, but I'm gonna redo these and make these out of fiberglass. I made these out of 5-gallon buckets. So I hope this answers the questions as far as you know, the mounting goes, because I mean, that's what I do. I got a new project coming up. I'm not going to redo a whole lot of stuff on this boat, just kind of fix what needs to be fixed, like the rudders and the electronics box. And this one's going to stay like it is, because I got a new project coming up. It's I made a plug to make a mold off of, and I made my fiberglass mold for an all fiberglass step hole. So it's going to be just like a real airboat step hole. It's going to be solid fiberglass. I'm going to deck the front end just like this and leave the back half open, and close the front and close the radio box, and I'm going to put styrofoam inside of it, so if it does flip over, it'll still float. But yeah, man, I hope this helps everybody out, and if it doesn't, you know, if you got any questions, if you want to know anything about it, just leave me a comment in the comment box, and I'll try to answer it or help you out the best I can. So that's it for now, guys, and take it easy.